Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Scott Schilling Speaks. I'm your host, Scott Schilling. I got just a dynamic guy with us here today. He's the founder and CEO of Social Dynamic Selling. We may get into that. And also the host of the King's Council podcast and King's Council, Rylee Meek. Thanks for joining me here on Scott Schilling Speaks.
Yeah, Sky, happy to be here, man. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when the last time we talked, I was actually on your podcast or one of your podcasts.
Right.
And it was more based around social dynamic selling and what you were doing there. So what is that, and help everybody understand that portion of your business a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So social dynamic selling is really selling one to many, to groups of people. And I was introduced to this concept of this one to many sales concept about 11 years ago. It's crazy to think how time has flown. But everything that I had done up until that point, Scott, was like selling one-on-one, where I would sit down with somebody from, hi, my name is Rylee, to 3 hours later, maybe asking for a sale. And as much as I love sales, I love just connecting with people and the sales process, I was always like pitched, we'll call it, and told that you can earn what you're worth, right? And your earning ability is uncapped. And I never really bought into that, simply because there's only a certain amount of time in a day, right? Like I can only do so many presentations. I know you have experienced that, right? It's training with all these one-on-one presentations. And so when I was introduced to this concept, it completely rocked my world, because I saw this gentleman, he actually sent postcards out to people, invited them out for a free steak dinner, and then he pitched them basically his products, and then asked for an appointment. And only those that were curious enough to know what the price was actually scheduled an appointment. He met with him the very next day, and then he closed a percentage of those. And I was like, whoa. I mean, first off, the presentation wasn't even that good. And he was still making money. And I thought, man, if I could talk about leveraging his time and marketing dollars and efforts as well. It's like, if he could do that in one day, man, I'll do a group selling every single day. That was my thought. I was like, this is going to be great. And that's what I did. I set up my first campaign. It would have been July of 2011. And at this time too, man, I was probably at one of my lowest points in my life. Just personally, financially, I had just moved back from Mexico, a failed business venture. I had $673 in my bank account at this time, and I was literally sleeping on my sister's couch. So it was one of those moments where it was like, okay, what's next, God? Like, what am I going to do here? And thankfully, I had a credit card that I could put some marketing on, and I made a few sales through this process. And this would have been, like I said, July of 2011. And fast forward for that the remainder of that year, over 6 months, I'd done over 2.1 million in sales. And that's when I realized, like, okay, I think this works, right? From $673 to 2.1 is like, all right, this is cool. So I started to recruit guys through 2012 and 13. We were doing, over 12 million a year. I had 26 sales crew throughout the country, over 38 states. And it allowed me to really step back and work on my business versus always in my business. And from there, it was like, all right, like what else can we sell? It's like, I started multiple different companies. To date, I've started 8 specific companies in this space. And when I say this space, totally different industries. It's just the sales and the marketing system space. And every single one of those we've taken to 7. And a couple of them we hit 8 figures within the very first year of each. So at the core of social dynamic selling, it's dinner seminars. It's seminar sales, identifying our exact client, who is our ideal client, the avatar that we talk about, and how do I get them to come out to an event, and how do I create urgency to get them to want to, meet with me the next day. And then the fulfillment side to getting the product either serviced or installed or whatever it is. And a lot of people that are listening probably are like, okay, I've seen like financial advisors do this, which is certainly one of the industries that we're in. We have an insurance company, but all sorts of other things, solar, regenerative medicine, real estate syndicates. It doesn't matter, walk-in bathtubs. It doesn't matter what the product is. It is high ticket sales. right?
Yes.
If you're selling a $48 widget, this probably isn't the program for you, just because the return on investment that would be needed, because it takes money to fill these events, and you're buying people dinner. But our goal is always to have at least a 300% ROI from every single campaign that we host. So that's social dynamic selling, man. And we, have our own companies, but now we consult and we teach people how to do this system and implement it into their own business.
Yeah, totally get that. We used to call it the chicken dinner circuit, and do that. But I mean, I understand completely. About 6 years that I was on the road doing 288 talks a year in stock market education. We didn't do dinner involved, but we did have 2 seminars a day. So I totally get how that process works. And then I did actually. It's so funny you said it, because I did for a chiropractor, I did a neuropathy dinner seminar,
you bet.
to educate people over. So totally relate to that completely. The good old days. Anyway, and now tell us a little bit about King's Counsel. Obviously, you got some pretty big branding there. So what you're excited about. So tell everybody about King's Counsel.
Super excited about King's Counsel. So the beautiful thing to put a bow on social dynamic selling is that it's a system. And it's a system that it works every single week. Like, for instance, well, today's Friday, so I don't have seminars going on Fridays, but Monday through Thursday at any given night, I've got maybe 50 to 70 events, maybe even upwards of 100 events happening every single night, Monday through Thursday, all throughout the country. And it's not me doing all of them, obviously. Like, we have people in place that run them. And so what that has allowed me to do is really focus on what I'm really truly passionate about, which is people. And to be clear on any of the products that I've ever sold, I have not been passionate about any of them. Right. Yeah. So when people say like, oh, you got to follow your passion, or you really gotta love the product that you sell, I don't believe it. I mean, obviously it needs to be a good product, morally and ethically good. But I mean, I believe as entrepreneurs, we are to look for opportunities, but always bring our passion with us. Absolutely. Right. So it's, rather than people oftentimes tell us to follow your passion, right? Follow your passion. You'll never work a day in your life. Whatever. You'll probably be broke, because oftentimes your passion isn't something that maybe you can monetize. And if it is, fantastic. But if it's not, you're going to have a tough time putting food on the table. Right. But if you take the approach, like, I'm just looking for opportunities, I'm bringing my passion wherever I go, opportunities will start to fall into your lap. Right. But you gotta have it on the forefront of your mind. And that's what social dynamic has allowed me to do. Is financially, I'm good. Right. Everything's taken care of. And from the outside looking in, you would think, a couple of years ago, you would think I had it all going on. Right. From the outside looking in. And it was an interesting time in my life, because it was like, all right, God, is this all I'm really supposed to do? Like, just, make money. We live here in Minnesota on the lake. It's beautiful, at least 3 months a year. But then we have a condo, down on Clearwater Beach, Florida. Sure. Right. We have a place in Texas. And it's like, from the outside looking in, people would think everything is great. Right. But if for anybody that's made money, you guys know this, like, money isn't everything. It's everything when you don't have enough of it, right? That it quickly becomes your everything. And that's why we're constantly chasing it and fleeting it. But really, money only makes us more of who we already are. And when I started to make a decent amount, I quickly realized I wasn't that good of a dude. And it exposed a lot of things in my life that caused me to step back. And thankfully, by the grace of God, he's allowed me to get through a lot of those things. So it was again, another time in my life where it's like, okay, is this it? Is this it, God? And I was struggling, like, I don't know what to do. And I ended up aligning with a gentleman named Steve Weatherford, really because I saw the fruit in his life that I wanted. And any time in my life when I've leveled up, it was about putting myself in a different circle, right? If anybody's like, that's like listening from the age of 15, when I realized I don't want to live in South Dakota and work a job or be a farmer. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I had to go find entrepreneurs who had the fruit in their life that I wanted. And I had to spend my time. I spent a lot of money and I consumed a lot of books and podcasts and things like that just allowed me to have that proper mindset. And this was that time in my life again. It was like I had this feeling of unfulfillment, right? And if anybody that's listening has had that, it's
totally understand what you're saying.
Terrible feeling, right? And it's like, okay, well then what do I want? Like, what really do I want? And I was looking, I was like, who has the fruit in their life? And I saw this gentleman named Steve Weatherford, former punter in the NFL, Super Bowl champion. And he was just starting on social media. He was always talking about bigger arms and six-pack abs, which is cool. Like, I want that too, right? But all of a sudden, there was a shift in him in how he was talking, in the language that he was using. And it was really just based upon his faith, and he was bold with it. And I was like, I can get down with this. I like this. And so I direct messaged him on good old Instagram, never talked to him before in my life. But we started to communicate. I was paying him $3,000 a month to hop on a phone call with me just to rap, right? It wasn't like, I wasn't looking for like business coaching, but I knew I wanted what he had, and I was willing to invest my time, my money, and, energy and effort into it. And through that process, we developed a great relationship. And partly just kind of a fun story to that. One of the things that I said when I saw that, my wife and I were sitting on the couch about a little over 2 years ago now. And I looked over at her and I said, I'm going to be best friends with this guy one day. Never talked to him before in my life. And here's probably the greatest thing that my wife actually did is she stood in agreement with me. She said, I don't doubt that you will, Rylee. And it wasn't, and this is the power, I think, if anybody again that's listening, that's like has a spouse or a significant other,
right?
The importance of being able to stand in agreement and speak life into them versus what we're usually taught to do is like, oh yeah, right. Or, I'm sure, right? Like, no,
exactly.
If I truly want what's best for my spouse, if anybody truly wants what's best for them, then let's do it. Like, why would we speak death into somebody? There's such power in the words we speak. There's death in life in the tongue. And when she stood in agreement, I was like empowered. And I did it. I reached out to him and we formed an incredible relationship. And through that, this, what you see here, the King's Council was birthed. And one of the things that we always talk about, and one of my personal mentors now, his name is Keith Kraft, is within our alignments, birth our assignments.
Yep.
And we had no idea what we were doing, but we knew we were supposed to just, be together, right? Like in some fashion, like we're just going to hang out, we're going to chat. And ultimately the assignment was birthed. It was the King's Council. And it's a faith-based, it's a legacy leadership development coaching program. We teach people how to discover, develop, and deploy their God-given talents and abilities. And we didn't know what it looked like in the beginning. We had no idea, but I'm a firm believer that with action comes clarity. And we just started to take steps. We jumped out the plane and we started to build the parachute on the way down. And we're still building it. Like January will be 1 full year that we've officially launched King's Council. And it's evolved into just an incredible platform where we do weekly coaching calls. We do monthly business masterminds for entrepreneurs. Not everybody in our group is like what we would think an entrepreneur, but we host these events called Become the CEO of Your Life. And it's the reason we call it that is because I believe we are all entrepreneurs. Okay, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, or you're a mailman, right? You're an IT, you are an entrepreneur, because the root word of entrepreneur means to undertake. That's it. Yep. You undertake. You don't run a Fortune 500 company, or you're not building a startup. You undertake. So no matter what you do, if you can approach it as an entrepreneur, it's going to allow you to undertake the task at hand, to be able to think creatively. And if we can operate our life like a business, like a CEO would run a company, we talk about operating our life with what we call the 5 power pillars, which is our mental, our emotional, our physical, our spiritual, and then the financial pillar as well. And if we can operate in excellence in every single one of those areas, we're going to be crushing the game, right? But if any of those areas, no different than if you run in a business, you think about the departments in a business like marketing or sales or fulfillment, HR, whatever it is.
Operations. Yep.
Yeah. Operations. If any of those is lacking, who struggles? The entire company.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Everybody, if marketing's not doing their job, sales is struggling, right? If sales is struggling, operations doesn't have anything to do. If operations is struggling, now sales is getting, we're having cancels. So we need to be operating in excellence in every one of those areas. And that's really what we coach on a personal development side. And then we also do, business masterminds. We just hosted our first event called Upgrade Your Marriage, which has been incredible, just even for my wife and I to be able to come alongside each other and do life together. It's really just unlocked us personally, but then as we're seeing it, just a ripple effect happen. And all of this really happened because really just what's been going on in the world. Like, I mean, with COVID, the negativity, just the junk, and there needs to be a change. And I believe the only people that are going to change it are entrepreneurs, people that are willing to undertake, right? That aren't just going to go with the flow and be told what they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to think, right? Because that's what's happening out there. And we need to be bold. We need to be bold in our faith and what we believe, and be able to stand up for what we know is right, what truth actually is. And that's starting here with this little vision of what King's Council is, but it's a ripple effect that's happening all throughout the country, all throughout the world. We have people in Africa, we have people in New Zealand, Canada, of course, but like it's happening. It's a movement that's taking place, and I couldn't be more excited about it, Scott.
Well, I think it's interesting that you mentioned Keith Kraft. We first met, a friend of mine was trying to get me to go to Keith's church for a year. And I was actually out on the Get Motivated tour. And I was back in the green room. We were in Ontario, California. And there was this guy on stage. And I said, man, he's really dynamic. Who is this guy? And they said, it's Keith Kraft. Don't you know him? And I said, why would I know him? He goes, he's a pastor from Dallas. I said, that's like saying he's a fire ant. Everybody's a pastor in Dallas, right? And it so happened that Keith is my friend's best friend. And so I started going to Elevate Life Church. So I know Keith. It doesn't shock me that you're, being mentored by him, a great individual, and some great wisdom there. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
So what are your plans for King's Council, and continue to expand it, or you got more than you can handle now? What's going on?
Man, I do have more than I can handle right now, but you know what? I know that there's a calling on this, and it's not about me. It's not about Steve. It's about the movement that's taking place, that I believe. You mentioned Keith, like I believe that it's a lot of the wisdom and leadership is trickle effect from him. So honor to him. I absolutely love him. He personally mentors us. Him and Sheila mentor Ash and I were in their marriage mastermind because he is just such a great man of wisdom. And if I can just glean a little bit from that to pass on, that's what we're doing. That's what Steve and I are both doing. And the vision here that we have is we just cast this vision for all of 2022 and where we're heading, man. And I've never been more excited than right now. Awesome. And it's not even like, it comes back to that movement of like, it's not about me. It's not about Steve or any of the leaders that have come on board with us, but it is about what's happening. It's like, I really believe like we are the remnant, and we are taking back territory, what we once had, right? As a nation here, and we're getting overrun, and it's going to take people like us to stand up and fight back, right? And actually stand up for what's true and what's right. And my real passion is, we're coaching men, we're coaching women, we're coaching marriages, unlocking marriages. Our first Upgrade Your Marriage event, a gentleman came up to me afterwards. He's like in his 40s, came up to me and said, "This was the greatest day of my entire life."
That's
amazing. Like, bro, your entire life? I mean, and just to hear that is like, this is how I know what we're doing is unlocking people. And how I have a 9-year-old daughter now. And when all the COVID stuff was happening, I remember just so clearly looking down on her, and I just thought, I mean, call it a divine moment from God, but it was just like, I got to do something. Right. Like, I cannot leave this earth the way it is. I cannot just in good conscience just pass it on to her the way it is. And I got to do something, and I need to instill in her how to lead appropriately, like how to have core values, like non-negotiables in our life of what we stand for, what the Meek family stands for. And that's what we've developed. And that's what we're coaching families and businesses to operate in a manner that has integrity, honor, accountability,
Yes.
right? And generosity. And that is why in 2022, we're going to be rolling out what's called the King's Academy, which is our youth leadership development program. So it's going to be, yes, we've got amazing men and women, but the family unit, I believe, is what's being attacked the most right now. And if that gets, if that's what's being attacked, that's what we need to armor up. Right. And
it's been attacked for years, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I grew up being told, do what I say, not what I do. Right. Which we all know that's a bunch of crap. Like, okay, yeah, do what I say, not what I do. No, I want to lead by example. Exactly. I want to be the leader. In order to leave a legacy, I have to live a legacy. And that's what we're coaching. Is like, we're living this legacy right now to leave a legacy for my daughter, for your kiddos, your grandkids. Like, that's what this is about. And we got to instill those at a young age and teach kids how to not just go with the flow. Like, the school system today is a freaking train wreck. And it's not getting any better on its own unless people like us stand up and stand for what we know is right. Because if we don't do anything, just look down the road, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, what's it going to be like? Right.
Yeah,
but
it's going to be really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got to be the ones that stand up and do what's right. So King's Academy is launching. We have live events all throughout the country, fun events. Like we have events called Upgrade Your Human, which so the 5 power pillars I talked about, we have a business mastermind every single month, which really focuses on the financial component, right? Because I believe if we have the ability to make money, we need to go make the absolute most of it, right? Morally and ethically, absolutely. Because it takes money. It's going to take money to do what's right in this world, right? And I think if people haven't noticed right now, I'm a Christian, and as Christians, we have been taught, we have been like brainwashed, in my opinion, that being rich financially is like a bad thing. People just think like, oh, it's you must be a crook, right? And we've been taught this. This is just a mindset that we've been taught. Like, if you have money, you must be a bad person, because a Christian can't be have a lot of money, right? Which is a complete freaking lie from the devil, right? It is, because if money, and this is what the scripture that always gets changed or warped, is money is the root of all evil. No. It's the love. The verb in that scripture is the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Okay. So the problem is, as Christians, we are loving money in our poverty. And I firmly believe this, because if you think about what you do when you love something, even think of like your spouse. Like when I first met Ash, what did I do? I was like, man, I think I love this chick. So I thought about her all the time. I pursued her. I did whatever it took to be around her.
Right.
And when I didn't get her, I was angry. I was upset. I was frustrated. Right. So think about that with your relationship with money. Are you, and also says we can't serve both God and money. We can't serve two masters. Right. So what are we doing there then? If we're employed to the job where I've got to go work for a 9 to 5 hour, or, a 9 to 5 job, an hourly paying job, I'm leaving my family, the quote unquote ones that I love, to go pursue and serve to make money. Right. But I'm not supposed to serve two masters. And so it's a mind trick that I believe we have been, that Satan has warped us as Christians to go to school, go to college, go $150,000 in debt to get a job that pays you a third of what you're even in debt annually, to work 40 years, to retire and die. Yeah, exactly. I look in the Bible, I don't see that anywhere. I don't see any of that as, and I look at the Bible as my template, right? So we've been brainwashed into what we think living a good Christian life is, right? That khaki wearing Christian life. Yeah. And that's what we're teaching. Like, we're teaching people how to make money. Okay. But I'm not interested in just getting people to make money if they're not going to steward it well and appropriately. Correct. So that's the big vision for King's Council, is we're going to make millionaires. We're going to make billionaires. I have no doubt in my mind, but we got to make sure that we're starting. It's a heart issue first. We got to make sure that we're operating knowing that I'm serving God, right? And money is serving me. And that's the philosophy that we coach in our business masterminds. And I know I was going to be going into upgrade your human. So that's what we coach on those, the financial pillar, and the 4 other pillars is our mental and emotional, physical, and spiritual component. And that's where we do these crazy fun events. This last one we hosted here in Minnesota, we always start the day out with like a message, and really just like, what are we doing here today? Like usually it's, you know, what are we looking to leave here today? Did we come into this with guilt, with anxiety, with frustration? What do we want to leave here at this event today? And then we go into like breath work, right? Or if anybody's familiar with like Wim Hof, the technique that we do is Wim Hof breathing. And it's really, it can be a spiritual moment. It's unbelievable, the visions that people get in this time. And then we go into just a fun event. We call it the Crucible exercise. And this last one here in Minnesota, we divided up into teams, and it was like a kind of a course that they had to run up and down this huge mountain, like not a mountain, excuse me. We don't have mountains here in Minnesota, but a huge hill, holding a raft down into the lake. Then they had to paddle as a team out and around some buoys. And then they had to come back and figure out like a riddle, which is extremely difficult when you don't have enough oxygen to your brain.
Right.
And then we always end the day with cold plunging, right? And just putting our bodies in an uncomfortable environment, because there's something that unlocks us as like a collective discomfort, right?
Yeah.
When we're able to do hard things, because life is hard, right? We're not the coaching company that's going to tell you like life's great and it's going to be easy. No. Life is hard, right? Making a lot of money is hard, but being broke is hard too, right? Being a great husband is hard, but being a scumbag is just as hard, right? Like running a business is hard, but being an employee is hard. What we have to do is choose our hard. And that's what we focus on over these upgrade your human events. And then we do just fun stuff too, as I mentioned, like our marriage events and things like that. So I could go on and on and on, Scott.
Awesome. I wish you were excited about some of this.
Right?
It's interesting. One of my mentors took me aside a long time ago, and he said, you have the obligation, and I changed the word when I tell the story to invitation, but you got the invitation to make as much money as you possibly can. And I kind of went, oh, this is the money talk. And he said, you think it's about the money? It's not about the money. It's about the 2 things that come with money. The good you can do and the influence you can have.
Yeah.
And it resets the mindset and the heart set on everything as you work towards that. So I totally agree with you. And again, we're in it's interesting. It's one of the reasons I do 5 shows a week, because what's happening is it is unlocking and opening up business opportunities. Like you said, it's a matter of opportunities and having your mind and your heart open to those opportunities. And that's what's happening by doing 5 shows a week. Is the guest is coming in talking about something because it's really about them, but it's amazing the opportunities that are being talked about and the good that can be done because of all those.
Yeah.
So you know what you're doing with the King's Council. It's interesting because I can see the influence of Keith on what you're doing, and just hearing you as I've known him for a lot of years now. So that's very cool. So we're coming close to on our time, but how do people get a hold of you and learn more about what you're doing?
So yes, social media wise, they can follow me on Instagram. It's the Rylee Meek, and Rylee spelled a little different. It's RYLEE. That's where we're probably most active from a social media standpoint. We have a Facebook page called Become the CEO of Your Life. So you could certainly find that as well. But if anybody wants to just text me, I'm happy to give out my number. It's 727-472-3860. And text me, just maybe even if you're curious on like what King's Council is, just text the word King, King. And I'm happy to get you any information that you'd have or that you're looking for on that, and see if it would be a program that you'd want to be a part of. So 727-472-3860.
Well, that's awesome. And definitely need to catch up in person next time you're in Big D.
Yeah.
So really appreciate you being on the show here today. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for joining us here on Scott Schilling Speaks. We'll see you again on Tuesday, the exact same time. God bless.